We've got the Greens saying no for the sake of saying no, just so they can save baby lizards and small tree frogs.
Well, saving the forests would be a fantastic way to start in this election, don't you think? One of the issues we really haven't talked about in this election is the protection of Australia's forests, biodiversity, the Great Barrier Reef, and it would be fantastic to see our forests protected as carbon stores. Sustainability in food production, but protecting our biodiversity, our water, our land, keeping farmers on the land, all those things are really important for the future and they are central to Greens policy. You can't have an economy if you don't look after your environment. We all know that.
The political abuse occurs when people accept, as they said in the Joe era, bagfuls of money for political favours. But isn't it just as corrupt when someone accepts truckloads of preferences for political favours? There is no difference. It's all about what keeps me in power and what I can do to give something back to the people who've done it. But B tore up that Land Act, which had taken 4 years, with scientists, woodland scientists, environmentalists and landholders to put together. He tore it up overnight. He replaced it with the Vegetation Management Act. It violated virtually every statute of the Legislative Standards Act of Queensland, which Tony Fitzgerald had put in place to guard against corruption in the state. It violated Article 15.1 of the United Nations Charter of Civil and Political Rights. It reversed the onus of proof. It done away with self-incrimination, it done away with the right to remain silent, it imposed retrospective obligations, there was no appeal to some executive laws, and it ignored scientists' reports, it ignored the Productivity Commission reports, it ignored ABARE reports, which found it was going to cost the Charleville area $180 million alone, it ignored DPI reports which found $900 million to the community and $293 million to landholders in damage. What happened? Well, the other abuse that you need to know about, and a lot of people in this room would never know or do not understand, I would say with the exception of Professor Bob Carter and maybe one other person in this room, probably no one in this room understands what the term endangered really means. But in truth, what it means in a nutshell and in a thumbnail sketch, endangered standard in Australia today means any species or any bioregion or any flora or fauna of that type, biodiversity, which is now less than 10% of its original number or occupies less than 10% of its original extent is regarded as endangered. The Greens were initially ecstatic about getting that win, but when it was applied on the ground here in Queensland, they found that something like only 4% of the ecosystems in Queensland were then endangered. So they ran back to Paul Keating, he went back to Mr Faulkner, and they doubled it to 10%. No science, no consultation, no nothing. So here in Australia today, you now have things in existence that are classed as endangered that exist in uncountable millions. Those essentials of life. You must have water, you must have food, you must have housing, you must have transport, you must have energy. And keep challenging them. What is your solution to finding the food for these people? A little thing on the food. In the 1990s, when we were in the Cattlemen's Union, at any one stage at that time we had about 120 days food left in the world. Today that's down to about 32. That's how much the food security in the world has declined in a period of 10 years. Whatever happened to fighting things that are hard and against us? If you look around today, I'm a leaseholder. The Delbessie Agreement means I lose from what I had. There is no doubt about that. You can dress it up in all the fancy words you like, but you lose. The wild rivers, you lose. And one thing Phil did not touch on, he may not be aware of it, But banks are now putting out in their mortgage documents, if you become aware that your property is going to be included in a wild rivers declared area, you must immediately notify the bank. The regrowth thing of the last one, it started out as saying not 1 hectare shall be shed. At the end of the day, 1.3 million hectares of regrowth is now locked up, and some people are trying to dress that up as a win. Richard Douglas, the senior counsel of the Bar Association of Queensland, I've got his letter in my bag, wrote a letter to the Queensland Premier berating her for introducing legislation which he said was retrospective and actually was against the rights of Queenslanders. The civil libertarians have also come out and spoken out against the Vegetation Management Act. Professor Surya Ratnapala, Professor of Law at the T.C. Burney University of Law in Queensland, has come out and said it is bad. And there are scores of other lawyers. But when will our mainstream agri-politicians wake up and finally take a stand and speak up? The self-sufficiency syndrome that had been fostered in Europe by World War II and almost starved has been lost in a wave of fundamentalism. And that's the same fundamentalism we face. Folks, thank you for listening to me. I hope you have a great conference. Thanks.